The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
A great crowd had gathered, and they had nothing to eat. So Jesus called his disciples to him and said to them, I feel sorry for all these people. They have been with me for 3 days now, and have nothing to eat. If I send them off home hungry, they will collapse on the way. Some have come a great distance. His disciples replied, Where could anyone get bread to feed these people in a deserted place like this? He asked them, How many loaves have you? 7, they said. Then he instructed the crowd to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves, and after giving thanks, he broke them and handed them to his disciples to distribute, and they distributed them among the crowd. They had a few small fish as well, and even these he said a blessing and offered them to be distributed also. They ate as much as they wanted, and they collected 7 baskets full of the scraps left over. Now there had been about 4,000 people. He sends them away, and immediately, getting into the boat with his disciples, went to the region of Dalmanutha. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to the Lord Jesus Christ.
The family of Simon has been very generous to the Formation House with the loaves of Angelina. They always bring us 10 to 20 loaves of Angelina. And at times it takes less than 2 days for students to wipe it away completely. You won't find every scraps of it. And you can't collect a few scraps of that. And these are just 16 students. And you think about the 7 loaves that was presented to Jesus to feed 4,000 in the Gospel of today. Earlier on in chapter 6, we hear of 5,000, but today 4,000. And if it takes less than 2 days for our students to finish 20 loaves of Angelina, and let's say, okay, 10 loaves in 1 day, so 16 people, and think about 4,000, that is almost impossible to feed 4,000 people with 7 loaves of bread. And it is an impossible situation. It cannot happen. And that is what the disciples tell Jesus. This is impossible. We cannot do this. You can't feed 5,000 people, 4,000 people with 7 loaves of bread. And it didn't matter to Jesus. He said, What do you have? What do you have? That little thing that you have, what is it? And yesterday I was watching a teenager. I think you would know this girl. She's called Greta Thunberg. She's from Sweden and has been a great activist of ecological consciousness and the climatic change. And she started a movement alone. She just wrote something on a board, and she sat in front of the parliament in Sweden, advocating for change. Advocating and asking the leaders to become conscious that our planet is sinking. The climatic change, something has to be done about it. And she just wrote that on a small piece of board, and she sat in front of the parliament. She did nothing. She just took that initiative and did that. She's a teenager today. I think she's 18 years now old. 18 or 19. I think 18 years old now. And after that, it made an impact such that almost a year after, she had more than 1 million followers. And today, as we speak, she has more than 11 million people who are advocating, who are following her footsteps. What did she do? She started with something very little, something that would If you think about it, you say it is an impossible movement, an impossible situation that she could even change the world in that way. And today she goes from one conference to another talking about climatic change, ecological awareness, and talking about how the planet is sinking and we have to take drastical measures at the moment. It's a crossway for us, and we have to make decisions now. Otherwise, our planet is going to disappear because nature is going to fight against us, and we are going to be extinct. And this is true. This is what is happening now. Floods everywhere. You know, the temperatures are changing. Things are not the way they were 50 years ago because of this very thing. And she says people are doing nothing about it. No, I'm just stressing the impact that she has made in the world with just something little. Just like the 5 loaves of bread or the 7 loaves of bread. Impossibly, but in reality, feeding 4,000 people. And this little girl starts like that. I remember when we had the outreach in December for the poor families and feeding program for the poor families. And it was just an initiative telling a few friends, could you contribute 4.5 euros to feed a family in the Philippines? And it started with 4.5 euros. In the end, we fed more than 2,500 families, and even contributed something even for the victims of the typhoon. And just tells you how little things God can take, little initiatives, God can take it, He can bless it and multiply. It is not for us to say we are going to plant this seed and watch over it and see how it's going to multiply. No. He says, what have you got? What is that little thing that you can start with? Where are those 7 loaves of bread? That is what I need. Even though it looks impossible to be able to feed 4,000 people, I am the God who makes impossible things possible. And what is He asking of us? That little initiative. Because at times we really easily give up and say, no, I can't do it. This work or this task is made for some people. If it's left for me, I cannot do it by my own self. And therefore, at times we give up too early. And in the Gospel of Mark, two chapters before, when we have the multiplication of 5,000, the multiplication of 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, it was just a boy who came with this. He just had his packed lunch, and then Jesus says, "What do you have?" And he says, "This is what I have, only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish." He blessed it, and he fed 5,000 people, men, not counting women and children. And today in the Gospel, he repeats the same kind of miracle, multiplying 7 loaves of bread and feeding 4,000 people. My dear brothers and sisters, this is the same question Jesus is asking you and I today. What have you got? It might be very little according to you. You might say, no, I have a talent, but what is it compared? How can I start something that will change the world? What can I do to be able to make an impact on the world? He says, I want just your little talent. Maybe it is singing. Maybe it's playing the keyboard like Harold does. Maybe it is a little act of generosity that he needs from you. Maybe he just needs you to talk to somebody about something. Maybe he wants you to reach out to others who are in need. Maybe he wants you to talk about Jesus to your friends, to your small group, to the children that you might meet today, to the people that you might meet today in your place of work or whatever thing you do. Maybe he just wants you to talk to them about Jesus or to talk to them about the gospel that we have just read today. And you never know. And he just says, that is what I need. And I will bless it and make it to feed abundance of people. My dear brothers and sisters, he still continues to ask us, how many loaves have you?